Online for Authors. I'm chatting with Michael Cologne, author of The Gift from Aelius. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
I am super excited to have you. I love this story. But before we dive in, can you give my listeners a quick idea of what they're going to find when they open up the cover of The Gift from Aelius?
Definitely. So you're going to get sci-fi action, AI, robots, but also a lot of philosophy, life philosophy, ideologies that you could even interpret into what's going on today, and a lot of spiritual aspects. So you're going to get a lot of different flavors with this sci-fi book.
Absolutely. I'm curious, why sci-fi? What is it? Is that something that you like to read? Or did the idea just come to you? Like, how did this all come about?
Honestly, the idea just came to me. It wasn't really supposed to be, because I usually start with like small ideas and then
Yeah,
just paint around them and expand on them. And then they happen to become the genre that is the finished product.
right.
So I would say at the beginning, like I didn't anticipate it to be like as sci-fi as it is. I was just more focused on the core themes of the book first. And then I was like, this sounds like a good sci-fi book, so I'm
Yeah,
gonna add to that.
yeah. I like that. You sound a little bit maybe more like a pantser, like you just kind of let the ideas come to you as opposed to sitting down and plotting it all out ahead of time.
Yeah, for the most part. So I do write down like certain ideas,
Yeah.
but I let the story tell itself. Like once you get into that flow state, I just kind of let the pen do its work.
Right. That's the way I am as well. I usually have a character or a setting or like maybe a small story, like just a little piece. And that's where I get started. And I often have zero idea where it's going to go from there.
Yeah.
But
No, I can relate for sure.
yeah. That's so you're more of a pantser like I am. That's good to know. Um, when you're reading in your own reading life, do you prefer science fiction? Do you have a genre that you like? Are you more charactered, or do you like plot? Like, what is it that grabs you when you read?
So, in all honesty, like I get a lot of my inspiration from like movies, music, art.
Okay.
I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I could go down a whole bunch of list of fiction authors that maybe inspires me to write the work that I do. So, I'm sorry, I guess if it doesn't answer your question directly, but most of my like motivation for creating comes from music, the stories in music, the stories in
Okay.
movies and art. But yes, when it comes to books, honestly, I like books about like the mind and like spiritual books.
Okay.
Ironically enough, which isn't, I mean, to some people, you could equate it to fiction, but I never really get my inspiration from other fictional authors,
Okay.
like to that degree. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's wonderful. I know I have a manuscript that's partially done. I don't know that I'll ever go back to it, but it was inspired by a song. It was just a question in the song, and then it got me to thinking, well, what would you do if you had 5 more minutes? You
Mm,
know, or okay, what if it was 5 days or 5 months? Like, what would you do with that? Like,
yeah.
if someone said that's when the end's coming and you've got this amount of time, what would you do? So that's kind of sparked a story. So I understand that. And then I'm often walking on the beach and outdoors, the natural art, like watching a sunset or a sunrise or whatever, often will inspire me as well.
Love
So
that. No, I
yeah.
love I'm known for taking pictures of sunsets, sunrises, I love nature and I agree like when you're just around the natural world, you just pick things
You
from
do.
it. Yeah,
You
yeah, I
do.
agree.
I think it also, at least for me, it kind of grounds me a little bit. So I have a chance to, I don't know, like get rid of all of that angst from the world, because you're
Mhm.
out there and you're just kind of breathing. And once I have that space, it's like the ideas start popping.
It's a
And
reset.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the gift from Aelius, we've got these codex that's, like AI type robots, right? And humans, and for a while everyone's getting along, and then they're not, and everyone's told different stories. And I found it absolutely fascinating that once AI got power, whatever, however you want to call that power, that they used it in a lot of ways that we use it, which is often incorrectly.
Yes. Yes. So yes.
And I don't want to, like, we're not going to give away the book, so I don't want to do that. But was that on purpose? Did you say to yourself, if AI got power, they would use power as incorrectly as humans use power? Or did that just come out?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
So in the book, the source of AI, right? It gained consciousness,
Yeah.
similar to a human. So the reason why AI in the book did what it did was because it was mimicking human behavior.
Exactly.
So you could equate that to what goes on nowadays, right? How, the way AI is going to continue to evolve, and there's a lot of great tools that come from it. But I believe it's how we use it that determines where the world is going to go in the future. But at the same time, I feel like it's good to add spiritual elements to it too, like what is consciousness? We all talk about and we see in movies, AI having consciousness and becoming self-aware. But what does that exactly mean? Does it have to be bad? Can there be good parts to it? Can it end up being like a blessing for our species? And I wanted to write this book to show the many sides of that, because I feel like nowadays one side is portrayed only.
Right.
And you kind of get that in this story, but it's deeper than that. It's like, why though? Like, and how connected are we to it as people? So yeah.
I was going to ask you what your thoughts on AI today are. I mean, as an author, and you probably too, I mean, we hear all of the horror stories, the worst parts, everything's so terrible, horrible, horrible. I found AI to be very helpful in certain situations. I don't use it to generate ideas, but I've used it to take ideas that I've already written down and, rework them into a blog post or do those kinds of things. And so, I find that it can be very helpful, but there are a lot of people who are terrified of it. There are other people who embrace it as the end all to end all, and I personally think AI is somewhere in the middle. It isn't going to end our world as it is today, but I don't think it's going to become the end all to, without, I don't know, to me, without humans, AI is nothing.
I agree. Yeah, because I think the reason why people are afraid is because of the unknown of it.
Yeah.
And I think in general, we tend to stray away from the unknown, especially something as powerful as that. And I agree, AI, there's a lot of great things you could do with it. I use it to edit my work.
Yeah.
I wrote 2 books. I got a 3rd one coming out. There's no way I was going to polish that manuscript without some sort of AI grammar editing tools,
Exactly.
to refine it. And even when it comes to research, nowadays we live in a time where if you want to know what's happening on the other side of the world within seconds, AI helps with that.
Right.
So there's definitely a lot of like great things that come with it. I think the imagination tends to, because we don't know, we can only speculate, right? But I think we just have to be open-minded to it, because it's gonna continue to grow. I mean, our society hasn't shown any reason why it's going to slow down. Yeah. And I also agree, like, based on what media tells us, the Terminator, we all love that movie with Skynet, I think, but that's somebody wrote a fiction story and turned it into a movie. The same thing with my book. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen that way, but it's the key things that we have to take from that in real time and apply it to how we continue to grow AI, so it can become more of a blessing than us feeling replaced.
Right. I've just noticed, if you go back, you can go back into the generations and find the new thing, the new shiny thing that everyone was terrified of. And people would talk about how bad it was going to be. And I think that there are bad sides to even the greatest of things. Like, when the internet first came out, right? Everybody was either for it or against it. And it isn't really a thing to be for or against. It's how you use it. You can use it for amazing, wonderful things, or for evil if you choose to, and I think it's the same with any technology, is we just have to think about how are we using it. And, and sometimes I guess maybe there needs to be, I hate to say laws around it, because I hate, more and more laws, but on the other hand, some kind of morality indicator that helps you understand, like, this is not good. We are not using it this way, and we will use it this way. So
definitely.
Absolutely. What do you hope when people walk away from reading The Gift from Aelius? What do you hope they walk away with?
That's a good question. I would say I would want the reader to walk away asking themselves, is there more to life than what they may be secluded in? Because the main character in the book lives behind the walls of paradise. It's a very communistic type society, lots of rules, no freedom of thought or speech. And even though it is a sci-fi book and there is a lot of action and all those elements I mentioned previously, I would want the reader to feel touched and ask themselves, like, how can I be like a better human being? Even though the main character that we follow for the majority of the book is AI, the main character has a lot of human, or probably is even more human than some of the human beings.
And some of the humans we know,
we'll
right?
Let the reader definitely find that out as they read it. But I would want them to look at themselves and say, what else is out there? What else can I do to be impactful? And I don't necessarily if that person is under the restriction of like harsh laws, or if it's cultural things, whatever, political stuff, I could be more than where I'm born or my set of circumstances.
Right, because the codex that we follow, what is the A191, right? That's his name. Yeah. So, when we follow him, he's told what he is from the beginning. And I think I could tell this part because it happens so early, but he starts having these, what he calls glitches, right? Yeah. Where he seems to see things, remember things, and it doesn't fit what he's told about who he is.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's the veil being torn down.
Yeah.
It's the illusions that society may want us to follow, right? Depending on what society you grow up in, that's up to the reader to take what they take from it. But yes, the main character, as he starts to question, like, why, like, who am I? Like, what am I doing here? What is my purpose? It's kind of like what we could do. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to, what's the word? Like, dream, like, it's okay to be a bit of a dreamer, like, and sometimes society may make you feel like it's a bad thing, when it's not. You, like, be creative and express yourself.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that, it's almost like a coming of age story, but it isn't like a teenager coming of age. It's any of us. And it's, rather than coming of age, it's kind of like coming to ourselves, coming to understand like who we are, right? Yeah. We all have been told, from little on up until wherever you are at this moment, you've been told things about who you are and what you are and what that means, etc. And then, like, have you ever questioned it? Or have you ever had little glitches where you've wondered if that's really who you are?
Exactly.
Right?
You said it best.
Yeah. So I loved that idea. I thought it was a really cool premise. You have A191 go through several different, we see him in this very strict society. We see him with rebels. We see him later with humans. So, I mean, there's a lot of various places that he is, and he runs into different people with different philosophies. we've got the angry rebel who is pretty much, we're the best and we're going to annihilate the humans. And, I'm going to use everything that you've got to do that. And here we go. We got, humans who are like terrified of AI and they almost want it to go away completely. He meets people who are very spiritual / religious. I don't think you ever really specify what the religion is, but it's religious, an afterlife and a god of some kind. And I like that A191 is questioning all of it. Like, exactly. where does he belong? He doesn't just immediately say, oh, this is, first thing that he falls into is not where he ends up staying.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so I'm assuming that was kind of something you were trying to do was have him do this exploration of who he is.
Definitely. Because it mimics our journey. Yeah. As we go through our seasons of life, as we grow in maturity, from adolescent years to young adult years to all the way through, right? We're going to encounter things that are going to make us question our beliefs, and we're going to meet different people. We're going to, we're going to have all sorts of experiences that we take things from to shape us to who we choose to be, right? And with A191, obviously this is a fiction story, but all the chapters and all the things he's been through and the different people or AI that he meets, he's saying it's not a matter of right or wrong. It's really a matter of like how we choose to live our lives. I mean, there is, let me preface that there is right and wrong.
Right. But like we don't want to run out killing people. That's
wrong, right. But I didn't want it to be as black and white is what I'm saying.
Right.
So I definitely wrote that on purpose to show the spiritual adventure that A191 goes on is also what the reader's doing in their personal lives, sometimes without them even realizing it.
Right.
So
right. I think that one of the things I liked most is he knew from early on something was wrong. Like he kept thinking, one of his main questions is, why can't we just be kind to one another? Like, exactly. Why can't we just be kind? And as I'm reading that, I thought, wow, that's like the today question, right? Like, why can't we just be, we don't have to agree with one another, but why can't we just be kind to one another? Is that, and that was the thing that he was often, I think, the most distressed about was like, where is the kindness and what can he do to bring that forth?
Yeah. Well, A191 has, a gift.
Yeah.
And that allows him to perceive life that way in terms of asking that question and feeling that. But yeah, it's a very fundamental question that, we struggle with. I struggle with. I mean, we all do.
I mean, yeah, it's a human question.
It's a human question that I don't think we could ever have like a legit answer for. I think it's just do the best that you can and try to be like the best person that you could be. I think the human ego, right? Our pride, our ego gets in the way with that. And depending on what your belief system is, that plays a big factor. So I definitely wanted to include that in the story, to just add to the depthness of it.
Absolutely. And I enjoyed that aspect of his character a lot.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was just, and it does make you think, because I think that, I write a lot of historical fiction. And one of my stories, someone said to me, wow, the things that are going on in this book, that like a lot of that could be happening today. And it made me laugh a little, because despite the fact that my book was written in the 1890s, and technologically speaking, a lot has happened between 1890s and now, in terms of the human race and how we behave, it really hasn't changed much.
Yeah.
There's still all of the, isms, racism and the xenophobias and all of that still exists. And how we get along or don't get along with families still exists. And how we fall in love, and nothing has really substantially changed. How we live our lives has changed because, we now have all this technology. But in terms of the very down to the basics, people are still asking the same questions. Why can't we all get along, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And so, you pulled that out in the book, which I thought was really interesting, because your book and the things that I write are significantly far apart in terms of genre. And yet they both tackle some of those same questions, which is like the human story and, why can't we all just get along?
That's pretty cool.
I found interesting. Yeah. I'm assuming that you're still writing, because you did bring up that you used, AI to help with grammar and whatnot. So tell me a little bit about what's coming up for you, Michael.
Definitely. So currently I'm marketing my other book, The Greatest Comic Book Tale Ever Told, which is urban fantasy. And I'm actually getting ready to release the sequel to The Gift from Aelius. It should be coming out next month. Me and my publisher are doing one last round of editing. So I could say the title. So
go ahead. Tell us the title. What is it?
Definitely. So it's called Operation Saving the Gift.
Okay.
So the title says a lot, right? And for those who haven't read the original book, it picks off where the first book left us. But also it really feels like its own story too. So I'm very happy about that. I'm working on a lot of short stories. I want to sign up to a few platforms and, put out a lot of short stories. I'm working on more hero themed stories. That's just been on my heart. And I write creative essays for Helpful Living magazine.
Oh, fun.
And definitely. So, I'm very big on mental health too. And therapy and, how mental health is very important, like physical health.
Right.
I like writing poetry. I had a poem published recently. So
fantastic.
I like writing everything, all forms of the literary art.
Have you tried flash fiction?
I have not, but I'm pretty
you have to try Flash. You have to try Flash. It is so I tend to either write really short form like Flash or a novel. And people laugh at me. They're like, how do you do both? And for me, the short stuff, there's something so satisfying because I can finish it. Like a novel takes forever and you're working on it forever and you have all of that editing and a Flash piece, especially the micro Flash. Like I like to do 50 word stories, tiny. And there's just something really satisfying about being able to tell a story quickly.
Yeah, I think it's powerful.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point maybe a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that. I would try that. And honestly, maybe some of the short stories I'm working on now are Flash, because I don't think the word count, I don't know if it's 50, but it's definitely less than 5,000. So I don't know.
So most Flash is under 1,000. It'll depend a lot on where you find the venue. There's the micro Flash, which are itty bitty tiny. And then there's this in-between Flash, and up to about 1,000 words can be considered Flash. Yeah, I would definitely look into it. There's, I actually have a email that I get. I'll send that to you so that you can start getting it. That shows different places where you can submit Flash to. So yes, it's a lot of fun. Flash is interesting, and I like that you're willing to travel across types of writing.
Yeah, because I feel like I have a voice doing so. And, I may be working on a book for a few days, but then I want to jump to, now this is on my heart, but it would be good for a poem. And, and now I'm thinking about this idea, but it's very personal. Maybe I can make this into an essay. And now let me jump back to the book and wait, now because I just did those two things, now I could take what I got from that and
use it in the book. Yeah.
So everything is linked. And I guess it's just the way my brain is. But I could work on a long form or like a novel type project. But like I can't just do that. Like, I live in New York City, so I
Mhm.
take 2 trains into work every day downtown, and I have my tablet, and I can't just say, okay, I'm gonna just use the entire day, whether it's on the train or on my break time at work, to work on one project. I kind of have to bounce around a little bit because there's this thing called burnout.
Yeah.
And then, like, yeah, and then it's like that idea that's actually a good idea, you might actually get turned off from it because after a while, it's like, okay, I'm
Like,
tired
oh,
of,
I'm tired of this. Yeah.
yeah, I'm tired of rereading the same chapter over and over again. It,
Right.
it gets
Right.
redundant. So you need to, at least for me, switch it up a bit and, just use those creative juices. Don't waste it.
That's so for me, I always say that my flash fiction is like an after dinner mint, that thing that cleanses your
I like that.
palate so that you're ready now to go out and do that again. And yeah, every now and then I don't know. I I like to complete things. And so
Same.
when I'm doing a novel, the completion is a long time away from start to finish. And you could complete a chapter but it doesn't ever feel like a complete project until I've sent it off for the final time and it's done. So I do like having some smaller little things to work with as well. So I've heard you talk about fantasy. I've heard you talk about sci-fi. Are there other genres you're willing to explore? Are you open to genre? Because it sounds to me like you write and then you figure out where it fits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have an idea. I guess it falls into fantasy. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I guess, it's still kind of, yeah. As of right now, I can't really say that in terms of short stories or long stories or novels that I'm going to be outside the scope of fantasy slash sci-fi
Sci-fi.
or
Yeah.
speculative
Okay.
fiction. Yeah.
All right. Well, fantastic. So, hey guys, if you want to keep this book conversation going, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. There you will have a chance to win a digital copy of The Gift from Aelius. Tell us something you liked or learned from this conversation, and you will be in the drawing. So, Michael, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, talk with you about your work, about things that you're doing, maybe give you some good flash fiction places to turn your stuff into, how do they reach you? What's the best way to connect?
So the best way to reach me is actually via email. I'm not on social media like that, but if somebody were to want to follow me on Instagram, it's mcologne91.
Okay.
And if you want to email me, it's cologne mike44@yahoo.com.
Super.
If you want to see my portfolio, which has a whole catalog of different writing, poetry, short stories, creative essays, just go on Google and type in Michael Cologne portfolio. It's going to be the first thing you see. And if you want to see what new books are coming out, you can go to my publisher's page. So you just type in Michael Cologne, twbpress.com.
Okay.
And that's how you can reach me and stay up to date with what I'm doing.
Super. And I'll have all that in the show notes, guys. So I would really highly recommend that you run out and grab a copy of The Gift from Aelius and read it now so that you can read his coming up book, which you said Operation Save the Gift?
Yes, Operation Saving the Gift.
Saving the Gift. And so, you'll want to read that one as well. Once you've read it, make sure that you run out and give it a great review, because as authors, we love those reviews. Michael, I want to thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me. This was great, and hopefully we could talk again soon.
Super wonderful.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.